Yes. We've talked about microphones. We've actually talked about keyboards before, but there are several new options in this wonderful, crazy world of keyboards. So we've got the old school, we've got the new school, and we're going to help you guys figure out what's going to be best for you for gaming, for typing, and for using in the bathtub. Alright, so let's talk through the different switches. First off, Cherry. If you guys know all the different Cherry stuff and you've never seen anything, I'll go through it quickly. There's a couple different types of switches. You have linear switches, you have tactile switches, and then you have tactile clicky switches. Is Windows you son of a bitch! I had stuff that needed to be saved. Just Windows Update strikes again while you're over here trying to make a video. Alright, so your linear switches are going to be like reds and blacks. And the different colors are basically, between red and black, just different actuation pressures. Now, all Cherry switches, well, all the regular ones, they bottom out at 4 millimeters. But halfway down at 2 millimeters, you'll feel a little bump, and there's an actuation. Now this one is clicky. Those Cherry MX's blues. Blues are clicky and tactile. So you have that. Then you have ones that are just tactile. Browns, you press them down, you feel a bump. Like, you actually feel the bump, but there's no clicky sound. So, bumps there, but no clickiness. And then with your reds, those are the ones that are completely linear. And as you press the reds down, they're just smooth sailing all the way down. You don't really feel much of a bump or anything like that. It actuates somewhere in the middle. A lot of people prefer this for gaming keyboards because you can be really fast with them. You can just rest your hand on them, and you can give it a little bit of pressure. And the actuation and the return point, it usually actuates and then it returns as you come back. So you can just you can actually mush your finger into it and just keep actuating. Fast for double tapping, if you wanted to dodge out of the way and stuff like that. They're pretty fast for that. But some people for typing don't prefer those. Like me, myself, I can't stand typing on red switches. I fat finger the fuck out of that thing. They're just a little bit too mushy, so when I'm typing, I end up with a bunch of extra characters that shouldn't be there. So that's why I don't use them for that. I end up using browns when I'm doing a lot of gaming. There's new switches we should talk about. Cherry MX Silent. Right back here, this is the new Cherry MX Silent. It doesn't always come in this beautiful old school beige, or they call it dark gray color. It comes in some different colors like black or whatever. But these are similar to the Cherry MX switches, but not similar. They're silent. And these things bottom out at 3.7 millimeters instead of 4 millimeters. They actuate around the same spot, right around 2. And you've got reds and blacks. We're going to put all the different actuation forces and stuff on the website so you guys can see, because there's just too many to go through. But reds are softer than blacks. As you press this down, you'll notice that these actually have more of a bump than the standard linear Cherry MX reds, but those are actually loud. There's a pretty good click with Cherry MX reds. These, you don't get it. There must be something stopping it from bottoming out all the way. But you do feel a little bit of pressure. It's almost like these are somewhere between membrane keyboards, which are like the really cheap keyboards you can grab at any store. Some people still like membranes. I'm no problem with it. And they're also quiet. A lot of streamers use membrane keyboards. So they're somewhere between that and mechanical. But I actually like the feel of these. And I think I would really like the black ones because the black ones are going to be a little bit stiffer. But these do not feel bad at all. And they're super quiet, which makes them very nice for people who stream. If you stream, a very good place to look. If you're not going to just buy like a cheap, memory keyboard. Over here, these are infrared switches, guys. So it's not all about Cherry MX anymore. You've got Cherry and you've got Cherry clones. Like we've got some Kale switches, which I quite enjoy. People being like, things made in China, not as good as things made in Germany. Maybe, but they freaking work and they feel nice. We also have Topre switches from Japan, now put into a different housing, Nova Touch TKL. Feel it. Feels the same. And then back here, this is the daddy. This is one of the original Model M keyboards. Model M16, right? I want it to be the M16. This is the M13. It's in black. Picked it up at a furniture store, and part of it got melted because those idiots didn't know what gem they had, and they put it on a radiator. So anyway, this one is the old daddy. So let's talk through these. Starting off with some of the new stuff. Now, here, this is the Tesoro Excalibur. And this one features some really interesting new technology. There are infrared switches in here, and also the actuation point is only 1.5. Just for the basics, all Cherry MX switches, well, all the basic Cherry MX switches, they actuate at around 2 millimeters, and they bottom out at 4 millimeters. Now these, they bottom out similarly, but they actuate quicker. Well, that's plugged in. It's doing things on the computer. These actuate a little bit quicker, and they actuate differently. Also, the response time on these, they say, is like 0.1 milliseconds. And I don't know how to test that because I tried to do it with instruments, and the instruments were not from Germany, so they weren't specific enough. They were like average. Anyway, there's an infrared LED sort of in every single, I guess, every single housing in there. And as the switch come down like this. This is a very good scientific thing I'm doing here to show you guys. We don't have illustrations. We can't afford it. Oh, thank you very much. So as it comes down, the coffee is the switch coming down. And here, this is the infrared. Science. Comes down, and it interrupts the infrared. See that happen? That action? That's the sound. And that's actuated. And it doesn't actually bottom out. It doesn't bounce back from any plate below or any metal. I mean, it feels pretty interesting. It feels a lot like a blue. They've got them, you know, everything comes out to model after the cherry stuff. So this one is the blue model, which means that it's clicky and has a tactile bump. So that's how that one works. And it's a little bit different. And a lot of people like it a lot for gaming. I think it feels great. It feels just like a Cherry MX Blue. Similar actuation, similar pressure needed. So there's that. Then you move on up here. These are Kales. These are also blue. The thing about the Kale switches, they redesigned them. And if you buy the RGB stuff, the housing is a little bit better, and the LEDs are positioned more in the center, so you actually get a more even lighting scheme. Sort of like the Romer G from Logitech, which we do not have, so we can't talk about. Romer Gs are really, really cool if you like Cherry MX Browns. They feel good and they look good. We ain't got them right now. So yeah, the Kale switches, guys, I'm not really going to get into the Kales too much. I just want to say they are very similar to Cherry switches. They are cheaper. Do not be afraid of them. They are not shittily made. Is that a word? You know, the fail rate may be slightly higher than Cherry, but it is still within completely acceptable ranges, and they just work. So it's cheaper, and they feel almost just like it. In fact, we've got a Lolita keyboard over here made by somebody from China, and Josh, he swears by it. He's been trying to take it home. I'm like, hey, what are you doing with that? He's like, this is my pay for today. I was like, all right. But I bought that one with cash money. It wasn't sent to us, and the Kale switches feel really nice. All right, moving on up to the Nova Touch TKL. Now, these are Topre switches. Now, these are a little bit different in the sense that they're somewhere between the old school mechanical, like these Cherry MX, and then a membrane keyboard, because they do have the mechanical component, but there's also a membrane in there, so they have sort of this poppy feel. So these things do feel a little bit poppy, and typists love this keyboard. It's one of the most preferred keyboards for typists. Some people think it feels a little bit too bouncy for gaming, in fact. But I love the way these feel as well. Depending on my mood, if I'm typing really fast, they may feel better than the Model M. Did I just say that? All right, IBM Model M, these are heavy. These are the clickiest. They pop back so nicely. Now, these are called buckling spring keyboards that are made by IBM. Now they're only really made by Unicomp in Kentucky, so if you wanted a new keyboard, you'd have to go look it up, a Unicomp keyboard. You can still find some of the old IBM Model M's on the internet. The way these work is there's actually a spring in the middle. Here, I'll do the diagram again, scientific. And as you press it down, the spring goes, and it goes down, and then all of a sudden it buckles. Buckling spring. So, Cherry MX Silent, very similar to Cherry MX, except they bottom out at 3.7. They still actuate at 2, and the return, like, after they actuate, the return is just a little bit above the actuation, just like all the other switches out there. They have a pretty quick return. But they bottom out at 3.7, so there's obviously something in there probably dampening them. And they're quiet. I mean, these are like as quiet, if not quieter, than membrane keyboards out there. But they don't entirely feel like membrane keyboards. In fact, these are the Reds, and to me personally, they feel a lot better than regular Reds. Reds feel very mushy. These have a really nice feel to them. I mean, a really nice feel if you compare them to Reds. They're not as clicky as the other Cherry MX stuff. They're not even as... The tactile bump is not as pronounced as a brown. It's not nearly as pronounced as like a blue or something like that. And then it feels kind of like a mushy Topre. So if you're a typist, you might like this, but to me it does feel like somewhere between a Cherry MX Red and a Topre. So still a little bumpy, but it does have more of a bump or a pop than a standard Cherry MX Red. They also make this in black, which is like, this one's like a 40 gram actuation, and black is just like this, except stronger. So that's pretty much it. So guys, we're going to put each one of these keyboards on the desk and let you hear them, one after the other. We'll put the switch type on the bottom so you guys know what they are. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So there you have it. That was a bit all over the place because there's a lot of keyboards here, a lot of different switches to choose from out there. We covered most except for the Roamer G, but I hopefully can convey how that feels. But it's all about what you want. Do you feel clicky? Do you feel soft and mushy? And fast? And swift? And silent? What do you feel like? So yeah, go ahead and pick your favorite keyboard, grab a t-shirt, or else let us know what you think in the comments below. Or don't. I'm not going to do it for you if you're too lazy. If you guys could only see what I see.